site selection session of the business meeting of the 80th World Science Fiction Convention will be in order. The city of Chicago is located on land that is and has long been a center for Native peoples. The area is the traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe, or the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations. Many other nations consider this area their traditional homeland, including the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sac and Fox, Peoria, Kakusaki, Wea, Kickapoo, and Muscooten. The city specifically acknowledges the contributions of Kithawa of the Potawatomi in fostering the community that has become Chicago. We acknowledge all Native peoples who came before us and who continue to contribute to our city. We are committed to promoting Native cultural heritage. And now I'm going to turn the floor over to Warren Buff, our site selection administrator, to present the results of the election for the 2024 Worldcon.
Good morning, I'm Warren Buff, he, him. This year we, for the first time, had electronic site selection voting, which I would like to say was a rather rousing success. We had 323 people vote electronically this year. So I will go ahead and dispense with the results, starting with, of course, the write-ins. We had 802 ballots expressing a preference. Of those, we had one for the Glasgow Scotch Store, the fabulous Bungalow Glen, Grantville, West Virginia, Level 15 Illusion, Ingvi is a Louse, Davis Base Antarctica, Derry, Dark Brandon's Top Secret Lair, Stargate Command in 2024, Shamblin Book Mine in 2024, Bozeman, Montana to celebrate Zephyr Cochran's historic flight, Peggy Ray's House, Wonderland, Minneapolis in 73, Reykjavik in 2042, Malmö, Sweden, Any Country with an Acceptable Human Rights Record, St. Petersburg, not sure which one, Boston and Christmas because the Winter Worldcon was so much fun last year, Secundus and Alpha Centauri. 2 votes each for Zerps in 2010 and Caribou, Maine. 3 for Moon Valley. There were no votes for none of the above. The remaining 776 votes were for Glasgow.
Before I call on Esther, I will entertain a motion to direct the site selection administrator to destroy the ballots for the 2024 Worldcon. Is there a second? Is there any objection? Warren, please trash the ballots.
Thank you, I will.
Esther.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Hi. Thank you. So, if you're a member of my team, or you've helped in any way...
Esther, can you scoot a little closer to the microphone?
Yeah. So, if you're a member of my team, or if you've helped Glasgow in any way at all, could you come to the front, please? And could you stand behind me, because that means that I won't cry until the end. If you could also not stand by the screens, if that's possible.
Please feel free to obstruct view of the head table.
So my name is Esther McCallum-Stewart, she, her, and I am the chair of the 2024 Worldcon. As a distraction from not crying until the end, we'd like to start with a video to get you in the mood. They're slides for work, don't worry.
Those were just samples.
They are just samples, yes. Oh, yeah. Can we have the lights off, please? The name of the 2024 Worldcon will be Glasgow 2024, a Worldcon for our futures. So Glasgow has hosted Worldcon twice before, in 1995 and in 2005. And in announcing that 2024 has won, I'd like to thank the two previous chairs of Glasgow in this room for their support during this bid, Vincent Doherty and Colin Harris. And now to our guests in alphabetical order. An acclaimed BSFA nominated artist whose works have graced the covers of many beloved SF and fantasy novels, including Robert Asperin's Myth series and the British and German editions of Redwall. He has also worked on numerous major pictures for such visionary directors as Steven Spielberg, Tim Burton and Stanley Kubrick. And he's been a storyboard artist for Disney Pictures. And he's a rogue. He's never far from a tall tale at conventions, and he's a welcoming face whose easy conversation and passion make him an absolute delight to talk to. Our first guest will be Chris Baker, Bangor. And because we're bad at the alphabet, our next two guests will come at the start and the end of our guest list. They have been pillars of the science fiction and fantasy fan community for years. Their exemplary work in organising and running fan conventions, as well as in fan writing, fanzines and fan history, has enriched the lives of countless lovers of the genre. They've worked on conventions, individually and together, for decades. From small, fun conventions through Corflus and Conrunner to UK Easter Cons and Worldcons, often organising programme and editing publications. Their original fish lifter came from Intersection in 1995, and they've been on hand throughout the last few years with comments and queries. They've often sent me emails. They sent a fantastic email for the staff today, or just to laugh at me. They've done a bit of that as well. Our next guests are Claire Briley and Mark Plummer. See her and meet him respectively. Our next guest was born on the Isle of Lewis, and he now lives in Gurrock on the Firth of Clyde. That's in Scotland. He has degrees in biological sciences, worked in IT, and is now a full-time writer. He is the author of 18 novels and many articles, short stories and poems. His work has also received critical acclaim. He's won 3 BSFA awards and 3 Prometheus awards, and his novels and short fiction have graced the shortlists of the Arthur C. Clarke, Nebula, Locus and Hugo Awards, and he won the Sidewise Award for Alternate History in 2002. He is always fond of a good yarn with an unrivaled talent for sliding hidden puns and references, and then you just like wink into his conversation. I'm delighted to announce that Ken MacLeod is the guest of honor. He looks really fierce in that photo. An internationally award-winning author who explores her Nigerian heritage through her African futurist, thank you for gasping, and African Jujuist novels and short works. Our next guest also engages with many different science fiction media in her writing. As well as being an author, she is also a comics writer who has written a number of popular series for Marvel's Black Panther, including Shuri, Wakanda Forever, along with her own Hugo and Eisner award-winning graphic novel, LaGuardia. And when I actually asked her on, it was a Zoom conversation to be one of our guests, she just gave me this massive grin and she was like, sure, let's do it. I really, really love that. Nebi Okorafor, is our next guest. A beloved writer, editor, artist and folklorist who has written over 40 books and received 10 World Fantasy Awards, the Mythiopoeic Award, the Bram Stoker Award and the the SFWA Solstice Award, in addition to numerous prestigious shortlists. At the end of our alphabet, we find a guest whose work ranges from the fictional to the academic, all revolving around the magical and the fantastic. She's lived in New York, Boston, and the Arizona desert before settling in Devon with her husband and an elderly dog who I've met online, and a house full of puppets. Our final guest of honour at present will be Terry Windlayer. And we'll be announcing special guests and our toast person or toast people in due time, so keep your ears to the ground on that one. So the next two slides are going to show our prices, and we will just go through those quite quickly. I'm not going to talk about them in any depth, but basically just come down to our fan table and talk to us and maybe actually give us some money, that would be good. And if you're online, the website we hope will go live at 11 AM, so it's not quite live yet, but we needed to give our teams time to flip together. So, we usually dress like this every day. Down the shops, you know, to the gym. So this is landing zone. This is our Glasgow 2024 tartars. The colour palette is based on our logo, which we will be retaining. And the colour palette was also put together by Sarah Felix. And we will be selling it, so you too can go to the shops in these clothes. But again, speak to the fan table and you can see, you can do whatever you want with it really. We've also got things like ribbons, so we kind of went for lots of different prices and things that you can do. You can also just buy the cloth and make your own stuff. The journey to this Worldcon has been more than 500 miles, and I expect it to be more than 500 more, and I'm not going to cry. I'm honoured, and I'm so very proud of my team. I would like to thank them for their unfailing brilliance throughout the last few years. You have really made excitement, and you are amazing. To all of the rest of you wondering what this Worldcon will bring, I hope it will fulfill our values of caring, of inclusion, and of imagination. And I wish you all the wonder in the world. Thank you.
Esther, do you have time for a few questions? If there are any?
Yes, if there are any.
John, you can just shout and I'll restate the question.
John Pomeranz, he, him. I have just instructed the Discon treasurer to send you $27,000 in pass-along funds. My question is, would that be okay?
I accept. That wasn't for marriage as well, though. So. Thank you very much, and thank you to Discon.
Linda.
Has a Mark Protection Committee member been appointed yet? We're having our first meeting, I believe, later today or tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Nicholas White has been appointed. Oh, is he not allowed to go on the committee? In which case I will discuss with my committee. We were under the impression that he could do both roles. Okay, thanks, Ben.
Are there any other? Dave.
Esther, would you like a ribbon?
Hank, this will be the last question because we do have a lot of business to get through.
I'm just wondering, is there a lot to inspire people to show up in this country for tourism? Especially, I'm very musical minded, like that song that was done beforehand. I love it. And I love the British invasion music, so would there be a lot of reason for me to show up just for tourism from a music aspect?
Okay, yes, thank you for the question. So, yes, Glasgow is very, very musical, and we're lucky that our dates are actually quite close to the Edinburgh Festival and Edinburgh Fringe, which is a 45-minute train ride down the road. The site itself also hosts a comedy and a music festival. There is a gigantic new venue on site that's used for absolutely huge music, but the indie scene is also significant, and there are venues around the town and city that we will be discussing things with. So, and they'll just be doing things on their own anyway, because it's such a huge city that that's very, very common. So yeah.
All right. Thank you and congratulations. And I'm sorry, Esther, for all the emotions. I believe the Glasgow team will be downstairs in the exhibit hall, willing and ready to take your money as you see fit to give it. And thank you.
Yes, and if you could just give us a little bit of a pause, because we need to just sort some things out. We're hoping to open the table by midday.
Yes, do not run down to the exhibit.
Do not run. Ample. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have PR0 at the back, and we're going to be distributing it.
All right.
It's coming round now, I can see it. Thank you.
As they are distributing PR0, Warren, do you want to come up and the camera team can swap while Warren is coming up?
Okay. All right.
All right. So while the Glasgow team continues to hand out PR0, I am now going to re-recognize Warren Buff for the results of the 2023 NASFiC Selection.
Good morning again, Warren Buff, he, him. As I said before, we did have electronic site selection voting, and that applied in both races. We had a total of 103 electronic votes in this race, out of a total of 343 votes, of which 337 expressed a preference. Beginning with the write-ins, we had one each for all of these write-ins. The Fabulous Bungalow Blend, Grantville, West Virginia, Zerps, Hawley, Pennsylvania, any state or province with an acceptable human rights record, Tonopah, Nevada, or a random closet of a resort with a whole bunch of top secret documents that shouldn't be there, and Minneapolis in '73. There were 13 votes for Orlando, which had withdrawn, 4 for none of the above, and 312 for Winnipeg.
Before I call on the Winnipeg team, I will entertain a motion to direct the site selection administrator to destroy the ballots for the 2023 NASFiC. Is there a second? Any objection? Seeing none, Warren, please destroy those ballots too.
Will do, thank you.
And I'm going to thank the counters for both the 2023 NASFiC and the 2024 Worldcon site selection. And now, Linda, are you running the show?
Judge and I are both short, so this is good. We would like to start with our land acknowledgement for Manitoba. We acknowledge we gather on Treaty 1 territory, and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabeg, Dakota Ote, Denisuline, and Nahuatl nations. Excuse me. We acknowledge Manitoba is also the homeland of the Red River Métis. We respect the spirit and intent of our treaties and treaty making, and remain committed to working in partnership with the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. We have a handout. I don't think I need to read the whole thing here for you. We would like to, do we have the ability to? We have our promotional video that we did for the bid. If anybody hasn't seen it, we can put it up, but it's not urgent.
The head table does not have a copy, so I suggest we just...
We do have a little flyer, which we'll announce. We have, on our flyer, there are 7 guests. We would like to announce an 8th guest. Katerina Vermette has just confirmed to us today. So we have 8 guests. We will have people down at the table at 1 o'clock in the afternoon today. If there's any questions, because I know we're a little short on time.
Yeah, Linda, can you read the 7?
Julie Sineda, Wabushige Rice, Missy Shaw, John Mansfield is our fan guest, Philip John Curry, our ghost of honor is Lorna Toulis, and Tanya Huff are our other guests.
We have time for like 1 or 2 questions. Yeah, can you read the dates, Linda?
Oh, yes, we will be July the 20th to the 23rd of next year.
Is there anyone with a question? Seeing none?
Oh, and are we supposed to have a seat on the Market Protection Committee?
Yes.
That's me.
Did my mother have a question?
Thank you for the acknowledgement, my son. Did you intentionally pick 20 to 23 for the year 2023?
We figured to make it easier on you.
Seeing no other questions, Linda, Jani, thank you. As they noted, as Linda said, the Winnipeg team will be down in the exhibit hall beginning at 1 p.m. We're now going to move to, I think we're going to shorten it. Oh, well, we were going to do question time for Chengdu. Lisa, do you need a second to battery swap? You're good? Okay. We're going to move to 5 minutes of question time for the 2023 Worldcon in Chengdu. I believe they do have a presentation first, so Donna's going to call up the slides. Ben and team, do you want to just come up to the microphone while he does that? You can, if the speech goes with the slides, then go ahead. Just run through the slides then. Okay, can you make sure that you can pull it out if it doesn't reach up? There you go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And my name is Chen Shi, and from Chengdu, China. It is a great pleasure to meet you, all friends new and old, fans from close and far, and people who are involved in the fantasy world. We were planning the 2023 Chengdu Worldcon that will grow on efforts of a committee involving partners from home and abroad who will devote into the event. Ben and I served as the co-chair of the upcoming events, and we are lucky to have Dan McCasey, Donald Aslick, Randall Shepherd, and a few other fans and professionals to be the vice chairs. And then, you will not be surprised to find familiar faces in Chengdu committee, and some confusing new names might appear as well. All of them are capable guys from various areas, from curator, designer, programmer to sci-fi novelists. We gather together to create a familiar and unexpected Worldcon. WSFS area will be loyally carried out, including Hugo World Selection, business meeting, and site selections. Those areas will be conducted through integrity and in the correct manner, surrounded by familiar names from the fantasy world. Worldcon are a party for sci-fi fans. Apart from convention parties, the Chengdu Worldcon will stone attending with spectacular lake parties. An island of a lake heart, a light and water display looks very cool. To keep in line with the event at the site, and regretfully for those who couldn't make it to Chengdu next year, we will bring out an online convention for fans who might not be able to attend in person. Though mobile phones or VR equipment, fans will have on-the-scenes experience to feel the scenario of sci-fi works. The Chengdu Worldcon will present an interesting blending of Chinese tradition elements and science fictions. You might be impressed with the abundant essential elements of silk punk, Sichuan embroidery, and ancient Shu Kingdom cultures. The city will take you on an incredible sci-fi adventures. Non-human sense will be left out. Fantasy in people's talk, ritual displays, and music performance will echo you how sci-fi these cities. Catch a future sense at metro stations, the craft beer at the cyberpunk block. Watch a sci-fi movie exhibitions or grab a book at the mall bookstore. Chengdu sci-fi sense is on the core. To follow the conventional practice, the 2023 Chengdu Worldcon will probably be held during next August. As planned, Chengdu Center City View Convention and Exhibition Center will be the place, which is located in the city downtown, easily accessible and way above standard facilities. The hotel brings together the best of European tradition and Chinese hotelizations. It features more than 5,000 guest rooms and suites. There are 24 multi-purpose meeting rooms of various sizes. The Crystal Ballroom with its 2,800 square meters will hold the Hugo ceremony. Besides the Intercontinental, there are scattered many other accommodation options with the price range up from about $40 US and walk distance to the main exciting center. Chengdu is the international transportation hub, linking West China with the world. There are two international airports, named Chengdu Airport and Tianfu Airport. During the pre-pandemic era, more than 90 direct international roads were available, connecting West China with almost all major cities worldwide. Currently, it's still easily accessible to Beijing, Shanghai, or Hong Kong, and it is promised that more direct flights will be restored in the near future. And in Chengdu, you can always explore things to do and see in Chengdu. You come, you enjoy, and you have fun. Chengdu is a city of panda. It is a symbol of world peace and friendship. We are inviting a famous panda who have lived in USA for a couple years and now retired back to Chengdu to be the co-chair for the Worldcon. Yeah, hopefully he could accept the invitation. It is a city of mysteries. Chengdu enjoys profound cultural histories from the Sanxin civilization to the Jinsa civilizations. This city demonstrates the mysteries, imaginations, and charm of fantasy culture. Okay, Chengdu is a city of tasty food. The city is reputed as eat in Sichuan and taste in Chengdu. Sichuan food is the most delicious ones in China, I say, with more than 6,000 diversity of dishes. Oh, don't you ever miss hot pot? Oh, that's my favorite. Take a challenge and try the tango with reverberation and sour hot flavors. It is a city of joy. We offer a must-see list which covers hot icons, historical place of interest, bars, and city tours. Each seems to bring something new. And Chengdu is a city of diversity. You'll find millions of fun things to do. Go on anime convention at weekend, join the Han Chinese dress club and have a show. Or dressed up for the subculture street scenes at the shopping center of Taikuli and fire up and hang out in bars at the end of the street. And Chengdu is a city of science fictions, okay? The magazine Science Fiction World, the most influenced science fiction publisher in China, is based in Chengdu. It is a major source of Chinese science fiction literature corporates. The first and largest city-live science fiction fandom, Chengdu Science Fiction Society, is located in Chengdu. That is well. So now please allow me to introduce Ms. Liang Shaolan, Chair of Chengdu Science Fiction Society, as a regulator of BID. Chengdu Science Fiction Center is the earliest and the biggest city fund in China, connecting partners like Science Fiction World, 89 Village, and the Science Fiction associations in different universities and colleges. Members of Chengdu Science Fiction Society will take part in various groups of preparation work as volunteers. I believe she is better than me to deliver the closing remarks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Liang Xiaolan. We asked the poetry of yesterday's Sick Pumpkin Pounder that is it possible to make Chengdu Worldcon a new branch of the cultural exchange between the West and the East, and a new start of the two sides of the globe. What I so like to see is this connection is the reason that all of the being longful, facing the challenges of decisions, climate change and methane station, we can perhaps, with the help of the sense and action, break the boundary of the limit, communicate with the whole community, heal the spirit and difference, create the connections and physical the symbol. They bounce on principles and images, which is also the theme of Chengdu Worldcon 2023. I sincerely hope that the friends from the whole slightly community can communicate, exchange and synchronicities with each other in the Worldcon family and we are more than happy to have your suggestions and ideas to do. Thanks.
Ben, do you have additional?
No, I'm here for questions.
All right, we have Martin.
Mr. Chairman, Martin Pine, he, him. Mr. Chairman, at what time, when does the Chengdu Committee expect to have finalized the dates for the Worldcon?
Ben Yallow, he, him. The answer is as soon as I get the next draft of the PR, we have the dates for the Worldcon. It will be August 16 through 20, which is printed in our PR, which I have been reviewing repeatedly over this past week. So it's the thing that I get to see first thing in the morning because it's evening in Chengdu.
Are there other questions for the 20? In the back.
Thank you, Martin. Dave Hook, him. COVID is still going on as a thing. I'm curious, what is the con's backup plan should Chengdu be shut down again for travel and all of that? Thank you.
Two comments. The first is, as we've seen over the last several years, boy, things change a lot over the last several years, and we've got a year for things to change further. So we can't really plan on what the restrictions are going to be, what the basically we're wide open on in-person because we don't know what the rules are going to be. I know some of you have heard that Chengdu is in lockdown. It went into lockdown a few days ago, but it's one of the shortest lockdowns planned in China. In addition, we are planning a significant virtual program for people who cannot attend the convention in person.
Brian?
Brian Nisbet, he, him. Given the, and I'm admittedly biased on this, success of online voting for site selection at these two races in Chicago, will Chengdu be able to commit to providing something similar, whatever the platform is, or do you have other ideas in place for electronic site selection? Thank you.
We have made no decisions concerning electronic site selection. We are obviously going to be interested in auditing everything that was done here so that we can figure out what is feasible, what complies with all the rules, and how to integrate that in with our existing platforms. And not just the existing platforms, but the new platform which should be rolling out any day now.
Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew Adams, he, him. For many of the regular attendees of Worldcon, China requires a visa for them to enter. Can you tell us when you expect to have details of how people can get help in applying for a visa to attend the convention?
We are hoping to do so in the not too distant future. A lot of that is going to link into things such as we are hoping to get government sponsorship of the convention from a financial viewpoint. And we are hopeful that with the government being one of our sponsors, they will be able to assist us in finding ways for people to get visas.
Colin?
Thanks. Colin Harris, him. In the slides, when it talked about the venue, it said the venue is probably the etc. and so on. I just want to check, is that a translation thing, or does it mean you're not fully contracted on the venue?
We and the venue have reached an agreement that this is the venue. Chinese contracting practices are different from those in the West, and so to give the technical answer to your question, no, there is no contract at the moment. However, there is a general agreement.
Winton.
Winton Matthews, he, him. What percentage of the program do you plan to be in Chinese only, and which percentage will be in Chinese and English?
A great deal of this is, again, going to depend on sponsorship. For those who have attended international conferences in Chengdu, which I have, I was watching the absolutely amazing situation where we had a panel with 4 panelists, all speaking their own native languages, and in this case it was English, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. The members of the panel had bugs in their ear. The members of the audience had bugs in their ear. Everybody was speaking their native language, and everybody was hearing it in their native language. With the right kind of corporate sponsorship, we hope to do this as much as possible, but the key is the sponsorship is not yet locked in. So until we know how much we can do real, honest to goodness, incredibly good simultaneous translation, we have not yet decided on how many program streams will be in what languages.
Are there any other questions? Mark.
Mark Richards, he, him. For those of us who voted at this con and are therefore now supporting members of Chengdu, what arrangements are being made with respect to getting back to us in respect of Hugo nominations, Hugo voting, and future site selection?
One minor correction. You are an attending member of Chengdu. Everybody who voted, or for that matter, purchased an advanced supporting membership, Chengdu has decided that there will be a 0 upgrade fee, and if you are in one of those categories, you are an attending member of Chengdu. We are working with the DISCON committee to deal with the transfer of various data. We are also in the process of rolling out a new registration platform. And for that matter, specifically, we would like to give our thanks to the Glasgow committee for their platform that they have been developing, so that we are using the same code, we are using the same general construction. On the other hand, due to international restrictions on moving code between China and many countries in the West, while the general spec is identical, we can't move code back and forth because of the unfortunate restrictions on moving code back and forth between China and the West.
We'll take one more question and then we'll have to take a recess for the tape change. I saw the person in the back first.
Terry, Ash, she, her. Given that, it's on? Good. Given that for the average Worldcon attendee who is not local, this is a significant travel arrangement, and people will have to take significant time off from their job, what have you. What is the timeline on getting a facilities contract and a hotel contract such that we will be able to apply for our visas and book flights, etc.?
We are still working on exactly what it will take to be able to make it feasible for people to apply for visas and make travel arrangements. We also, since you've mentioned travel arrangements, right now, travel arrangements to get between here and Chengdu are terrible. Members of the team who came over here from Chengdu ended up stopping in, they started in one city in China, ended up in another city in China, ended up from there in Seoul, from there to San Francisco, from there to here. When I went to Chengdu in the pre-pandemic era, I flew home from Chengdu by taking the non-stop from Chengdu to San Francisco and a hop from there. That flight doesn't exist anymore. Lots of other flights don't exist anymore. We anticipate that more international flights directly in and out of Chengdu will be becoming available in the future, depending on the pandemic, depending on the airline industry. And that's, quite frankly, out of our control. We suggested we will continue to monitor it, and we hope that you continue to monitor it as well.
And with that, we're going to thank the Chengdu Committee for their time. And we're going to take a brief pause, not a recess, for a tape change in the back. And then we'll be back with your regularly scheduled program. Ready. I'm going to ask members to stop chattering amongst themselves. The next item of business before the business meeting is E.2, and we have a report from the committee, and my deputy presiding officer is going to give that report.
Okay, so yesterday a committee was formed to look at the offered amendment to E.2 and possibly come back with changes. And this is the report of that committee. As part of this report, I'm going to restate some things that may be known to some of you. Probably not to all of you, just so that we can make sure everyone has the same information. Our standing rules for WSFS currently contain Rule 2.1, titled Deadline for Submission of New Business. The text of this current standing rule is largely identical to what is in Amendment E.2, 30 days, half new business, other than some slight changes for clarity. Anything in the standing rules can be suspended by a 2/3 vote. So as our standing rules currently stand, the deadline to submit new business is 30 days prior to the meeting, and the presiding officer can choose to accept late new business anyway. If the presiding officer does not accept late new business, the business meeting can, by a 2/3 vote, suspend 2.1 and take up the business anyway. They could also, if the presiding officer does allow a late item, vote to suspend 2.1 and not take up that item. This ability to suspend the rules is not stated explicitly in Rule 2.1 because all standing rules are subject to being suspended in that manner. At last year's business meeting, we decided to codify the standing rule into the Constitution pending its ratification at this convention. As part of doing so, it was pointed out that we would still want the ability to suspend that rule. It was the sense of last year's presiding officer that due to a rather arcane provision in Robert's rules, it would actually still be possible to suspend the rules for that specific new part of the Constitution. However, for clarity, both now and in 20 years when we've all forgotten everything, Don decided to move to amend the item in order to actually explicitly add the language that it can be suspended by a 2/3 vote. The suspension by a 2/3 vote is not any different from the suspension that is already possible under the standing rules. It does not create a time loop issue because it is not asking the business meeting to hold the vote to suspend at that 30-day prior point in the past. Rather, just as happens now, the vote to suspend would happen at the business meeting in order for the body to consider a late item that the presiding officer had not accepted. Inserting a paragraph break before the last sentence of E2 and then adding the text about suspending after that would accomplish something else entirely. It would break the rule into two parts. The first part, stating the deadline for new business, would no longer be suspendable. Only the second part, stating that the presiding officer can decide to allow late business, would be suspendable. So while the business meeting would still have the ability to say, no, presiding officer, we actually won't be considering that late item that you allowed, it would no longer have the ability to say, yes, presiding officer, we actually will be considering the late item that you disallowed. As such, it is the opinion of this committee that the amendment to E2 should stay exactly as originally proposed and simply add the words, this rule can be suspended by a 2/3 vote to the end of E.2.
Andrew, for what member does the purpose rise? Speak good, I do not. For what purpose does the member rise? Come to the microphone, please.
Andrew, I don't see him. Yesterday, when this was first raised, there was a ruling from the chair that this was a lesser change. Given the explanation by the deputy presiding officer just now, may I ask the presiding officer whether this is actually no change at all in effect, given that this is just codifying the rules that derive from Robert's Rules of Order, and therefore might the chair consider amending this to say this is a purely explanatory addition rather than any sort of lesser or greater change?
The presiding officer would agree that this is no change. For the sake of explaining to the body, we are going to just use the term lesser change because that will be clear as to why we don't have to re-ratify this next year at Chengdu. But yes, in real purpose, it is no change to the rules at all. The committee report is going to be taken as a motion to amend E.2. Yeah, it was seconded yesterday, but we're going to leave it there. Is there any objection to amending E.2 as shown on the screen there? Seeing none, the text of E.2 is amended as written. Is there any discussion on the underlying item of business? Seeing none, we're going to proceed to a vote on ratifying E.2. All those in favor of ratifying E.2, please raise your hands. All right, hands down. All those opposed? All right, the ayes have it. E.2 is ratified. It takes effect at the end of this convention, which doesn't really change. If it happened right now, I'm not accepting. Well, the deadline for 30 days before this convention is still the deadline for 30 days before this convention. All right, now we are going to move on to new constitutional amendments. Kate Secor.
I am going to defer to Aaron.
Thank you. Alan Tipper, they, them. Mr. Chairman, I would like, Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter a motion to suspend the rules to consider, at an appropriate time on Monday, a resolution that is the sense of the business meeting that the 2023 Worldcon Committee in Chengdu is not currently fulfilling their obligations as a Worldcon and to formally censure them accordingly.
Hold.
No one has been recognized to speak yet.
I do have my text, but I'm not pulling out my phone. As we just went through, the rules can be suspended by a 2/3 vote to take up any item of new business not accepted prior to the deadline. This does require a 2/3 vote to suspend the rules. A suspension of the rules, or a motion to suspend the rules, is neither debatable nor amendable. It does require a second. We haven't had one of those yet.
Second.
There is a second. Andrew Adams, I'm going to recognize you.
Parliamentary inquiry, and this is privileged, Mr. Chairman.
But Andrews is a point of parliamentary inquiry. Yeah. The motion that would be objected to is not before this body yet, as we have not yet voted to suspend the rules to consider that motion. If the body decides to suspend the rules and consider the motion, and I'm going to restate Alan's note that it would be at a time on Monday, which I am going to make, if he would allow it, the first thing on Monday morning, then at that point, an objection to consideration would be in order, as that main motion would be before this body. Andrew.
That was my parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chair.
Yes. All right. So, a motion to suspend the rules has been made and seconded. As I noted, a motion to suspend the rules is neither debatable nor amendable. It takes a 2/3 vote in favor to suspend the rules. All those in favor of suspending the rules to allow for consideration of a resolution that it is the sense of the business meeting to censure the Chengdu Committee, please raise your hands. This is not a vote on the underlying motion. This is just a vote on the suspension of the rules so that we can consider the underlying motion. All right? All those in favor of suspending the rules, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed. I'm going to say there is not 2/3 in favor. The motion to suspend the rules fails. We are now going to take up F.2 as we decided to take that up before F.1. Kate, for what purpose does the member rise?
I would like to make a motion to remain in the business currently on the floor.
On F.2? Yes. Can you, the member, pause for 1 second while I get page numbers? 12 on the short version and 38 in the long version PDF is where F.2 is. Kate, go ahead.
I move that F.2 and F.1 be referred to a committee of the whole to rise and report on a single motion on this issue, which we can then vote on, since the two motions currently under, next two motions are mutually exclusive, and I find that to be very confusing.
There is a second. Is there any objection to moving into a committee of the whole to be chaired by my deputy presiding officer because I get to appoint one? Seeing Cliff, what is your inquiry?
How long is this committee of the whole to last?
Okay, we're going to give you 15 minutes, and then if you need, you can extend by yourself. Any objection? Seeing none, we are going to dissolve into a committee of the whole. Before we do that, we are going to allow the camera team to take a tape change.
Okay, we are good to go. First things first, I'm going to ask the body if there are any objections to continuing the recording of this committee meeting. Seeing none, we're going to keep the cameras rolling. Okay, before we get started, I'm going to give us all a little debrief of what's going on, because I know a lot of you probably don't know. So, we've entered a committee of the whole. Basically, what we're going to be doing is taking advantage of the looser restrictions on debate that apply to committees in order to discuss the items that have been referred to us, F.1 and F.2, and then possibly make recommendations on how we should handle those items once we have returned to our regular meeting. We have been instructed to come out with a single motion, so we should really do that since we told ourselves to do that. Once we have come out of the committee of the whole, I, as the chairperson of it, will present a report to the business meeting presiding officer. This report will include that recommendation of the motion to take up, and then at that case, that item will be before the business meeting, given that it is properly seconded, which once again should happen since you all will have agreed to it. The report, nope, that section's not applicable since we were doing instructions. Relevant things to understand about how a committee of the whole works. We cannot amend or alter the text of the resolutions referred to us directly, but we can recommend changes as part of our report. Given the instructions that we were given, and the fact that F.2 is the item properly before the business meeting once we come out of here, I would suggest that if we arrive at a motion or an amendment that we like that isn't the exact text of F.2 as it currently is, we should probably do something like an amendment by substitution to turn F.2 into what we want it to be. And so that is like, I would suggest the form we want our report to take, but y'all can do something else if you want. But we will want to, however we do it, please remember that when we rise, it will be F.2 that is properly before us. And so we want to take that into consideration so that we are not immediately in a parliamentary quagmire when we rise. The only motions that are in order during this time are the motion to adopt, that is to include something in the report that I will be giving to the presiding officer of the business meeting, to amend what we are proposing in the report, and to rise in report, that is to exit the committee of the whole. Privileged motions like points of order, parliamentary inquiries, appealing a ruling, those are also in order. We can also extend debate past the 15 minutes allotted to us by a 2/3 vote. Finally, for those of you who were at the business meeting in Dublin in 2019, you are aware that I run debate a little stricter than the presiding officer of the main business meeting. After a member has finished speaking, I will ask, is there anyone wishing to speak or wishing to speak in favor or against if we are considering a motion? Only after I have finished that question should you rise to be recognized. If you rise before that, I will not recognize you unless you are bringing up a privileged matter, such as a point of order. So, given all of that, is there anyone wishing to speak? I'm going to take the point of order first, since that's what I heard first.
Yeah. Is it the implication that if the committee were to come out with a report, which will then substitute for F2, that an implicit sub-motion, or whatever you want to call it, will be to therefore vote down F1?
My suggestion would be that the form of the motion that comes out of this committee, we should probably include language about suspending the rules, just to make it easy. To take F1 off the agenda or whatever makes sense. Before I recognize the parliamentary inquiry, I realized I forgot one more thing. My name is Jessie Lip, that's been covered. My pronouns are they, them, that has been covered. My proper form of address is mixed chairperson. Kate.
Kate Secor, she, her. Mixed chairperson, Robert's rules as constituted do not permit straw polls. Do the rules of the committee of the whole allow us to do things like, hey y'all, if we wanted to move blah, 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 who here thinks that's a good idea? Like, are we allowed to do that as part of the committee of the whole?
We are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak? This person on the left, yes. A lot of you popped up a little too quickly.
Next chairperson, I'm Rafe Richards, he, him pronouns. I hope I followed your instructions correctly. I would like to make a motion to adopt. Specifically, I would like to move to adopt a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole that the main business meeting do whatever necessary to adopt F1 and discard F2.
I hear a second. So I'm going to state that motion as that a motion to adopt that the report of this meeting be to suspend the rules to take up F.1 and remove F.2 from, or actually suspend the rules to remove F.2 from the agenda and to take up F.1 immediately. Does anyone have an objection to my phrasing it that way? Hearing none. Do you wish to speak in favor of the motion you just made?
Next chairperson, thank you. Very briefly, we have moved to the Committee of the Whole because these two resolutions are fundamentally opposed to each other. Doing one of them is a very good idea. It is my humble opinion, and I do not think it really needs too much clarification as to why. It is very well listed in the agenda, the reasoning for F1, that F1 is the better of the two motions. Therefore, we should probably just save some time and get to that.
Is there anyone wishing to speak against the motion to adopt? Cliff.
Mixed chair, Cliff Dunn, he, him. The reasoning for adopting F2 instead of F1 is also largely in the agenda, but I will briefly note that adopting F1 will still leave a situation where we could end up with a Hugo category potentially if, say, a Worldcon had trouble accepting supporting memberships. I don't know why that could come about, but if they were unable to do that, or otherwise ended up with a relatively small voting base, we could end up running a Hugo with only a couple of hundred voters, as was the situation as recently as about a decade ago, when turnout was around 1,000. We could end up in a situation where we have a Hugo only being voted on by a handful of people at the existing 25% threshold. Now, I agree wholeheartedly with the underlying sentiment for both motions, that if there are thousands of people voting, or even potentially in the years to come, tens of thousands, we should not be discarding it so lightly the votes cast by hundreds and hundreds of people. But I do think there's a point where it's few enough people who voted in a large enough pool that it is not representative of the community, and that the community has, if nothing else, spoken by broad disinterest. And I think those 2 points speak to F2 instead of F1. Thank you very much.
Are you raising for a point of privilege? Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the motion to adopt? Olaf.
Olev Rockney, pronouns he, him, and I've probably done more reading on this particular subject than most. I actually started with a position relatively similar to the one advocated in motion F.2. but over time came to realize that there are already mechanisms for eliminating categories when there is insufficient interest, and that mechanism is this body. This is an accident waiting to happen under either set of rules. It is going to deny somebody a Hugo they richly deserved. It came way too close to happening last year in the Best Editor long form. And as a final point, the lowest number of votes ever received by a Hugo finalist, as far as I'm aware, was Roy Krenkel, who won for Best Artist at the first DC Worldcon in '61, and he received 12 votes. There is nobody who looks at Roy Krenkel and says, this guy didn't deserve a Hugo Award. There were 600 people at that Worldcon. People panicked. They added clauses to the Constitution to try and prevent that in the future. And then it got formalized. And we rarely go back and ask, well, has this clause done what it needed to do? I'd argue it hasn't. We should just get rid of it.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak against? Danielle?
Beniello, he, him. In general, I think that having some safety mechanism that says that when the number of votes that's being cast means that we have essentially no statistical significance to the result, that we should say, really, there's no statistical significance to this result. We're giving out the award randomly. I don't think that giving out a Hugo randomly is appropriate. With 200 people in a category, with 200 votes in a category, we're no longer dealing with statistical randomness. We're dealing with real data. Therefore, I propose to keep the safety against statistical randomness and giving out random Hugos.
Thank you. How are we doing on our 15-minute time allotment? How are we doing on the 15-minute time allotment?
Just over 5 minutes.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor? The person in the back of the galaxy mask?
Kat Gerbetti, she, her. To my understanding, there are certain categories that simply attract more votes. Categories like Best Dramatic Presentation, categories like Best Novel, Best Short Story. Those things are easy to access, easy to read, easy to understand what it is you're nominating. I think that there are people within the voting body who don't engage with certain categories because it's simply too complex, I guess, or they have no interest to that same statistical, not 1,000, like not all thousands of voters will go through and look at, say, editor long form, best fan cast, best fan artist. The smaller community categories tend to just attract smaller numbers of votes. That does not make them statistically irrelevant. It perhaps shows a weakness in attracting more attention, in making sure that all the voters know what that category is, what the work of those people is. That's a separate issue. I firmly support to strike F.2, and to go along with F.1. Thank you.
Can the member please bring, for the secretary, and then we still have a piece of paper for the captioner. If you have not yet spoken and plan to speak again, if you'll write your name down for the captioner. Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak against? Do you have a privileged matter?
Call the question.
Okay, the question has been called. I hear a second. Is there any objection?
Please restate the question.
The question, oh, as in like the question we're taking up, not that the question was called, that makes more sense. Okay, the matter before us is to adopt a report that we suspend the rules and remove F.2 from the agenda and immediately take up F.1. Is there any objection to closing debate on this matter? I see an objection. Can anyone still wishing to speak raise their hand? Okay, we're going to go to a vote. All those in favor, this does require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of closing debate, please raise the hand. Thank you. All those opposed closing debate, please raise the hand. I'm going to say the ayes have it, and we have closed debate. So once again, the motion before us is to adopt a report recommending that we suspend the rules and remove F.2 from the agenda and immediately take up F.1. All those in favor of the motion to adopt, please raise the hand. Thank you. All those against? Thank you. I'm now going to entertain a motion to rise and report unless there's additional matters that somebody wants to take up. I've heard so moved a few times. Is there I think if I hear two so moved, that probably counts as second, but we've also had a second. Terry? Point of information, was that the ayes have it? Yes. Thank you. Martin?
Martin Pine, him, mixed chairperson, parliamentary inquiry. Are we reporting a motion that will require a 2/3 vote?
We are. If the body does not wish to do that, somebody can move to amend instead of moving to rise and report. But if it is the sense of the committee that we have the 2/3 vote, then we can go ahead. So we have a motion before us to rise and report. It has been seconded. Are there any objections to rising and reporting? Seeing none, the committee of the whole is now disbanded. Dang it.
I was going to turn to you as if I wasn't sitting in the back of the room and say, does the committee chair have a report for the full body?
Committee chair does have a report for the full body. So the report of the committee of the whole, after some weirdo called the question on us, it was Jared for anyone who didn't see, is that it is the sense of this body that we should suspend the rules to remove F.2 from the agenda and immediately take up F.1. And so, Mr. Chair, I move that we suspend the rules and remove F.2 from the agenda and then immediately take up F.1.
Yes, the motion is to suspend the rules to allow consideration of F.1 after removing F.2 from the agenda entirely. There has been a second. A motion to suspend the rules is neither amendable nor debatable and requires a 2/3 vote in favor. All those in favor of suspending the rules to strike F.2 and allow consideration of F.1, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed? I'm going to say that was 2/3 in favor. The ayes have it. Therefore, F.2 is removed from the agenda, and we begin with consideration of F.1. There is 20 minutes of debate time for F.1. I'm going to get page numbers for all of you in a second. Page 10 in the short version, and 36 in the long form. Is there a member wishing to speak in favor of F.1? In the front here.
Karina Stark, she, her. I am in favor of F.1 because, as the past few years have shown us, unexpected things can and will happen at a Worldcon. Whether it is a global pandemic, some sort of financial crisis, or any other reason that would prevent a large number of people from nominating and voting for the Hugo Awards. It does not make the art or the excitement about the art created in that year any less significant. I do not believe that it should matter if a person only receives 12 votes for the best fan artist. Their art was made out of love for this community, and it should be celebrated in this community, regardless of what the total number of votes is.
Can the member please give their name to the secretary? Is there anyone wishing to speak against F.1? I saw Kent get up first.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Kent Bloom, and to follow on a bit on what Ben was saying during the committee of the whole, I think that this is a useful feature. It's never actually been used to my knowledge, and my knowledge is fairly extensive in this area. And I think it's a good, I don't know, I want to say threat. It's a good motivator to convince people to actually vote in the area, in the esoteric areas which they have an interest in. If nobody votes, why should we give a Hugo? If we don't get enough votes that we can't tell the difference statistically between the third place and the first place and the eighth place, which is what happens when you get only 10 or 15 votes in favor, then I don't think we should be giving a Hugo in that case. And I think this is the right thing to leave in the Constitution. Thank you.
Is the deputy presiding officer attempting to raise a point of privilege?
Calling the question is not a privileged matter, so no.
Are you attempting to make a motion to call the question?
Yes.
Ron.
Ron Oakes, he, him. I have some confusion as to at least how the motion appears in the long form PDF that is available online. It resolves the entire text of 3.12.2 in red, but then strikes out the words of final award ballot received. Would like clarification. Is the motion just to strike those final phrase of the last sentence, or is it to strike the entire section from the ballot or from the Constitution?
We believe that was a printing error. I'm going to turn to the maker of the motion. The PDF strikes the whole section. Is that the intent of?
The intent is to strike the entirety of 3.12.2.
Yes. We were all on the same page, at least us and Olaf. Martin, are you? Martin says he's good.
The member's okay.
There has been a motion to call the question, and it has been seconded. Is there any objection to calling the question? Seeing none, I will yes. There's no objections to call. My brain just farted there for a second. I need more coffee in the morning. We're going to proceed to a vote on F.1. Do I need to restate the motion? The motion is to strike the entirety of section 3.12.2, which was previously, or is still called, no award, or it doesn't actually say. Reads, no award shall be given whenever the total number of valid ballots cast for a specific category, excluding those cast for no award in first place, is less than 25% of the total number of final award ballots received. All of that text would be stricken. Striked. Deleted.
Can you please clarify?
It's Jody dash off she, her.
Thank you, son. A yes vote means we eliminate no award, and a no vote means we keep this?
No, we're not eliminating the possibility of no award. We are eliminating the threshold by which no award can be given in a category should that category receive less than 25% of the overall ballot. Or should there be votes in that category fewer than 25% of the overall votes. So in favor means we are striking the text. Against means we want to leave the text in there and leave the threshold in there. Does everybody understand? All those in favor of F.1, please raise your hands. All right, hands down. All those opposed? I'm going to say the ayes have it. F.1 is... There was a call for division. Yeah, okay, we're going to do a division. I don't think it's necessary, but that's my opinion. All those in favor of the motion, please stand or raise your pink paper or just your hand or your leg, some extremity. Yes, all right. So since this is the first time we are doing this today, we're going to start on my right. We're going to weave all the way back through this section. You are going to count off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as directed by the floor manager. Then we'll move to the middle, coming from the back to the front, and then to my left from the front to the back. And then we will do that all again for those. And then the head table, and then we will do that all for those against. All right, Martin, please go ahead.
7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 35, 38, 39, 40, 42. Yeah! 47. 48. 52. 54. 58. 61. 62. 63. 64. 66. 67. 68. 69. 70. 71. 72. 70. 73 in favor? 72. I wasn't sure, Martin.
All those opposed, please stand. Raise your pink card, some extremity, tentacles, whatever you have.
1, 2,
3, 6,
7, 8, 9,
10,
12, 13, 15, 17, 18,
Is there anybody on the head table? 19 against. The ayes have it. Well, I'm going to call for a recess, but I'm going to ask the Deputy Presiding Officer to read one passage first.
Thank you. I would like to call everyone's attention to paragraph 29 of Robert's Rules of Order newly revised regarding the motion for division. When it is clear that there has been a full vote and there can be no reasonable doubt as to which side is in the majority, a call for a division is dilatory. And the chair should not allow the individual member's right of demanding a division to be abused to the annoyance of the assembly. I would like us all to keep this in mind.
I'm now going to recess. 11:50 is when we will return. All right, it is now 11:55. We have returned from recess. I know those way. I'm going to turn to the Deputy Presiding Officer.
Hello. A couple matters have come to our attention regarding the ordering of the agenda. So I'm going to make a couple motions in order. So the first item is that because the maker of F.6 is required to be in the art show tomorrow in order to strike art, the other person who would normally be available to strike at the art show has had to go home due to a positive COVID test, and so the maker of F.6 cannot be here tomorrow. I'm going to ask the consent of the body to go ahead and take up F.6 now. With unanimous consent, we wouldn't have to worry about the whole thing we did F.5 and F.6 postponing indefinitely. So are there any objections to taking up F.6 now? Hearing none, the next motion I'm going to make, because I know that there's someone who wants to do this, is I'm going to move that we refer both F.5 and F.6 to a committee of the whole. There is an objection, and at this point, I'm not starting to make a motion.
First of all, before you object, let's see if the motion is actually seconded. Second. Martin.
Microphone, please.
Mr. Chairman, I can debate against, but I assume someone would want to speak in favor first.
Is there someone who wishes to speak in favor of referring? Andrew.
Andrew Adams, he, him. While not quite as closely joined together as the previous motions that we have considered in committee of the whole, I do think there is sufficient overlap between these two that it would be much better were we to hash out which one or any combination or some variant of these we wish to consider or not, rather than try and do it through the through the processes of the main meeting.
Martin, I will recognize you for a speech against referring to the committee of the whole.
Martin Pine, he, him. Mr. Chairman, I do not believe these motions are actually that tightly linked. I believe we can dispense with the art categories expeditiously, and we can do so without having to bring in F.5, which is significantly more controversial and has significantly more wide-reaching changes. I would prefer to just deal with F.6 now, and we can deal with F.5 tomorrow. We're probably honestly going to have to refer F5 to a committee anyway. I urge a vote against the motion.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor?
The fact we're going to have to do a committee of the whole anyways really speaks to it, and we were just pretty efficient with the last one. Sorry, Warren Buffy, so I think we should go ahead and do a committee of the whole now.
Is there anyone, Ira, for what purpose do you... Come on.
Alexandra, pronouns they, them. In addition to the point made previously that one of these amendments is far more controversial than the other, and that they are not closely linked. I'm sorry. We are voting to take up just F.6 right now, right?
We have voted to move, there was unanimous consent to move F6 first. So if the motion to refer fails, F.6 will come up and then F.3. If it passes, then we will take up both F5 and F6 in committee of the whole.
Yeah, in the spirit in which these proposals were separately proposed, I think it is keeping with the will of the creator. We are trying to accommodate to get this taken care of ASAP.
Is there anyone still wishing to speak either in favor or against? I'm not going to be mean. Joshua.
Joshua Cronengold, he, him. I thought it was already. Anyway. Oh, I see. While there absolutely. So I was the drafter of F5 and worked on F6. And so while there are obviously distinctions between the two motions, there are specific points that are at issue and that are in fact central to the controversy that are in common between the two. And therefore it is important that we resolve those and determine what the opinion of the body is regarding those issues. And in a way that is common to both F5 and F6 going forward before we deal with either. And therefore we should do the committee of the whole so we can discuss these important issues.
Terry, for what purpose does the member rise? That Terry in the back.
To speak against?
Against referring to committee?
Yes.
Is there anybody? Yeah, actually that was a speech in favor. Yeah.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman. Have we been referred to committee with instructions or just referred to committee?
It's distinctly possible I didn't include instructions, but we're taking up F5 and F6, and I trust all of you to figure out what the best thing to do with them is if we go into committee of the whole.
Thank you.
And I'll give the committee 10 minutes. So this is, right, if the time limit for debate will be 10 minutes, that'll be part of the motion when we state it. Terry, hold on 1 second. For what purpose does... I have already recognized a speaker. Yes, calling the question is not privileged. If someone is already speaking, Terry, go ahead, a speech against referring to committee.
Terry Ash, she, her. As currently constructed, F6 contains no overarching consequences for any other category. Therefore, to attempt to resolve both of them at once would not be expeditious and would wind up possibly not getting to any effective business at all.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of referring to committee? Anyone wishing to speak against? Elspeth. The motion to call the question is not privileged. Therefore, it was out of order. The motion was not made after the speaker finished. Elspeth, go ahead.
Elspeth Coburn, she, her, whatever. Sorry for you hearing me so often. Speaking against because I think there's a very simple wording problem with F6, as well as all the other things people have brought up. So let's just handle that, then go to the complicated part.
Are there any members remaining wishing to speak in favor or against? Seeing none, I'm going to put the question of referral to the committee of the whole to the body. The motion is to refer F5 and F6 to the committee of the whole for a period of 10 minutes to be extendable by the committee of the whole. And you can do whatever you want with them. All those in favor of referring F5 and F6 to a committee of the whole, raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed. I'm going to say the noes have it. All right, so we are on F6. Terry, I believe you are the maker of the motion. Do you want to speak in favor?
Yes, please.
Come on down. If only after I get one. I don't really care. You probably live in a different state than I do.
This is true. All right, so.
Name, pronouns.
They haven't even taken a breath.
Thank you. Terry Ash, she, her. You have the motion in front of you, clearing up the artist categories forever. No, really, we mean it this time. Yes, that title is sort of my fault.
You have the commentary. The artist categories have been so fundamentally bolted to publishing for so very long that the community of what is considered professional artists is very small and does not reflect the current state of science fiction and fantasy art as it is currently exhibited, produced, and sold. Sold being the operative word. Most of us are not doing covers for fan. Most of the people who are in fan art these days are not making covers for fanzines, are not necessarily making convention souvenir book covers. We are putting our art into the world to sell it, to make money. And that means that we should be given the grace to have our art considered as professional, as someone who has had the luck to get noticed by a publisher and have their work on a book cover or a magazine cover. It is not the 1980s and the 1970s anymore. Does not come into the art show anymore to find new people. It's much harder to break into that market than it's ever been. And we are a community of our peers, and we deserve to be recognized as such.
Is there any member wishing to speak against? Lisa. I'm going to note just a few things because I forgot to do them. One, F.1 is passed on to Chengdu because I didn't get to that. And there are 20 minutes of debate in total on F.6. So now you can go ahead.
Lisa Hertel, she, they. So my objection is the for sale part of this. I am an artist, and this is how I support myself. But even non-professional artists will come to art shows and they'll put their work up for sale. And their prices may not be very high, and they are certainly not making a living by it. And even though I am a professional artist, I am certainly not making a living by it. In fact, if I were not married to somebody who does make a living, I would not be able to be an artist. The problem is that every fan artist has eventually offered their work for sale, because that is how, you know, for one thing, they get it out of the house. Don't laugh, it's actually a real thing. And I believe we should strike the term for sale off of this amendment. So I would like to so amend that we strike for sale at the end of both sections.
So we're striking section 3 of 3.3. The amendment to 3.3.12. And it's within the Secretary's purview to move the or to the right place, so we're not going to debate that. And the last 3 words of the amendment to 3.3.17.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. That has been seconded. Yes, there's going to be 5 minutes of debate on this in total, so that's 2.5 minutes in favor of the amendment to the motion and 2.5 against. Lisa, am I allowed to take your speech as a speech in favor? Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak against? I saw the person in the back in the button down. I'm going to say it's off-white. I'm color confused, by the way.
Terry Carnegie, him. Reading the amendment, if we strike the for sale, it effectively continues the status quo.
Is there any member wishing to speak in favor of the amendment? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against? Mr. McCarty.
David McCarty, he, him. Sorry. While I have some disagreement with this motion on other terms, all art that's for sale is professional art. It doesn't matter if it's for sale for $1 or for sale for $10. Fan art is free. I think people who think that a person is a fan artist or a professional artist are misleading themselves. Fan art is an activity of making the art free. So I think that taking for sale out of this is not well intentioned.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of, in the blue? And I'm just going to be primary colors from now on because.
Diana Castillo, she, her pronouns. I am speaking in favor of the amendment because the previous speaker has this really old understanding of what fan art is. Fan artists do bring their own passion. But as the proposer of this amendment pointed out, they do have the realities of needing to pay rent, needing to pay food, needing to pay for additional supplies for their fan art because it doesn't come out of thin air. Eliminating the for sale or the behind the paywall acknowledges these realities and brings this motion, which I do think has good intentions, into reality and makes it so that someone who might be creating fan art of their favorite show and is like, wait, people like this, maybe I want to offer a print of this fan art, can continue to be seen as fan artists instead of being lumped into the professional artist category. I urge you to vote for this amendment.
Is there anyone wishing? Members are reminded that they should wait until I ask for a speech in favor or against, as we are, whatever we're at, before rising, so that I know you're not rising for a point of order or privilege. Is there anyone wishing to speak against? Seth, you haven't spoken yet.
Seth Breitbart. He, him, himself, his, his. I'm just wondering, is the work Phil Folio does professional? He certainly makes his living from it, but it is not a work for hire and it is not a paid commission.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the motion? Anyone still needing to speak against? Case.
Kate Secor, she, her. I think this amendment is pushed by a fundamental misunderstanding, which is that you can actually be both at the same time. This talks about, I know it's called fan artist, and I know it's called professional artist, and that is really misleading, because what it really is body of work. So, if you make a bunch of stuff and you sell it to pay for more supplies, that is professional art. If you make a bunch of stuff and you post it on your Tumblr, or you make prints and hand them out on the street corner, that is fan art. You can be, in the same year, a professional artist and a fan artist. And I see people shaking their heads and saying no, but I assure you that this has happened before, and that these rules do not change your ability to do that. If you look at it, it says, a body of work that. If you only have one body of work that was all offered in the same fashion, then yeah, you can only be one. If you do both, you can have both. The intent is not to define a person. I know that's the name of the category, and we probably should have cleaned that up because it is misleading. But the intent is not to define a person. It is to define a body of work produced by one or more people.
Is there anyone remaining who needs to speak in favor? Anyone who needs to speak against? Alex.
what I'm understanding is, oh sorry, Alex asks, they, them, is we're running into a definitional issue of an understanding of fan artist versus professional artist. And I understand, like, you know, I am a millennial. I understand that our understanding of fan artist is I make art of other people's IP. And I want, and obviously that's a thing, and it's all over the internet, etc. I do just want to bring up the point that if we are shifting more to that focus on the understanding that fan art is art that you are making of somebody else's IP, you're starting to get into a very sticky place when you're rewarding, you know, like putting that in a place where people are making money off of it, because fan artists and fan writers of that definition live in a space where we're not supposed to be making money off of it, or we might get sued or killed by the mouse assassins. So I just want to put that in people's minds to think about.
I'm now imagining little mice running around with ninja swords. Is there anyone remaining who needs to speak?
Would you like a time check?
Yeah, sure.
24 seconds remaining in favor, 6 against.
Is there anyone remaining who needs to speak in favor? Anyone who needs to speak in 6 seconds against? Ben, I have a gavel, but come on down.
Ben Yallo, he, him. This amendment moved John Focaccio completely out of professional and
I told you I have. Well, that was a full sentence, so I'll give it to you. All right. This amendment, John Focaccio, moved. Those are all the necessary parts of the sentence. And anyways, is there anyone remaining who wishes to speak in favor? There are 20-odd seconds. 24. Yes. Seeing none, I'm going to put the question to the body. I'm getting there. The motion is to amend the text in the agenda for F.6 to strike the section 3, so beginning with the 3 lowercase i's through the end of the sentence in section 3.3.12, and to strike the final clause, nor for sale, in section 3.3.17, and it is within the Secretary's purview to move that "or" that will be dangling to where it belongs. Yes. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed. I'm going to say the noes have it. The noes have it. All right. Going back to the underlying motion, we should have something like 12-ish minutes left.
I'm doing that. 758 in favor, 623 against.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on the underlying motion F.6? Is in favor, Andrew? Is there anyone in favor of F.6? Anyone? Kate, are you?
I yield to the person who has not spoken yet.
The person in the leather long coat.
Yes.
Hello, Richard 5, he, him. I concur with this point that was made earlier that this is a great definition between fan art and professional art, because the fan artist should not be making money off of their work since it is someone else's intellectual property, and that this will open up the gate for other makers of art that are making their living off of this professional art to be able to be eligible for this work.
Anyone wishing to speak against F.6 in the gray hoodie?
KJ, she, her. I would submit that if striking the words "for sale" from this definition makes it such that artists who are so obviously professional artists as Phil Folio and John Nicasio don't meet the definition of professional artist, that it is a bad definition. It's too broad, it's simultaneously both too exclusive and too broad. And I don't think that we are going to hammer out that definition today with the people in this room. I think this needs to go back to a committee that's going to meet with artists who would be effectively affected by this, deeply affected by this resolution and this change. And I actually move that we refer this to a committee to report back next year.
Point of personal privilege.
Terry, yes. I will restate, you can just scream.
No, I'll come up to the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you. Terry Ash, she, her. I'm sorry I forgot to state my credentials at the beginning of this. I am one half of Geek Calligraphy. We are in the art show.
I'm going to rule that this is debate and not a point of personal privilege.
No, the artist community was in fact consulted.
I understand that. It is still debate. I'm going to repeat for those who weren't here the last 2 days. I know it's not fun, but debate need not be factual. There is a motion to refer this back to a committee that I am going to appoint that will include artists, potentially those artists who have already commented on this amendment. It has not been seconded. Is there a second? I see a second in the back. Is there anyone wishing to, I'm going to give this 5 minutes, the motion to refer, in total. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the motion to refer? Andrew Adams.
Andrew Adams, he, him. As has already been stated, we have some different generations and some different communities who have come into Worldcon and who have been in Worldcon for many years, who have different conceptions of what the words pro and the words fan mean. This is not a final solution, as the name of this motion suggested to this. The current proposal will meet one set of definitions of this. It will not meet another set of definitions of this. As a conrunner, I have had people who do art and who give that art to conventions for their use freely, and then the original art that they give us goes in the art show and is sold. They are fan artists. They are primarily covering the costs involved in making that art and donating it to fandom. I do not like the current definition necessarily. I don't think the current one works well. I do not think this one solves it for all the different groups that we have to try and satisfy. There may not be a perfect solution, but I think we still need further debate and consultation with a very wide range of fan and pro artists.
Is there anyone wishing to speak against the motion to refer? Kate. While Kate comes to the microphone, I am going to remind the body that this is just one of the new constitutional amendments that we have to get through, and it is now nearly 12:30 today. We are to break at 1 today, and tomorrow at 1, the convention committee may very well come in here and grab us by the back of the neck, committing a code of conduct violation by doing so, and wrangle us out of here because closing ceremonies will be in this room. Kate, go ahead.
Kate Secor, she, her. I believe I'm what's referred to as an elder millennial. I actually believe that there is fan art that is not necessarily using other people's IP. You absolutely can have independent IP fan art, because the point of fan art is that you did it for free. It's not about what's in it. It's not about the content. The Hugos and all of the definitions of the Hugos have all been very, very careful to stay away from content-based definitions. And I think that it doesn't really get much more simpler than, did you do it with the expectation that you'd be paid? Or did you do it with the expectation that you were going to show it to people so they tell you it was cool? Right? There are an enormous swathe of artists that are not included in either category right now, based on the restrictions in the current definitions that have been there for at least as long as I've been aware of the categories. This current version solves so many problems that we have not even touched on. Like, what do you do with people who aren't illustrators? That I think holding it up because some people don't believe in the existence of fan art for original IP is a little silly. Thanks, y'all.
Is there any... Members are reminded, I should wait to finish. Is there any member wishing to speak in favor of referring to committee? Joni Dashoff. It's good exercise to stand up and then sit down.
Thank you. In addition to being, Joni Brill Dashoff, she, her, in addition to being mother of the chair, I am still, until we hold elections, vice president for the Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy Artists. This, as written, does separate art from being tied to an art show. It, however, does not just give us a difference between Sarah Felix and Lisa Hertel and John Picasso, which is why I would desperately like it to go back to committee. Thank you.
Is there anyone wishing to speak against the motion to refer? Yes. In the hat.
Dave Wallace, he, him. I would just like to note that I think there's a potential problem with any referring to committee to report back next year, in that the composition of the business meeting, given all we've heard about the potential transportation difficulties, et cetera, may be very different in Chengdu than the traditional composition of business meeting here. And I would recommend that instead we have it, if we do refer to committee, that it should report back in 2024 to Glasgow. Is that possible? No, not possible.
You cannot make a second order motion. Yes. A committee cannot report back after the next business meeting. It would have to be report back saying we didn't do anything, and then reconstitute it and report back in 2024.
We do that all the time.
Kevin Stanley, Eagan, parliamentary inquiry. How much time is remaining on the motion to refer? Mr. Chair, I move the previous question only on the motion to refer.
There is a motion to call the question, and it has been seconded. Is there any objection to calling the question on the motion to refer? Seeing none, the motion before the body is to refer F.6 to a committee, which I will appoint. And Sarah's not in the room.
We know where to find her.
I'm going to appoint a chair subject to the person's acceptance of this committee, and I'm going to name Lisa Hertel as deputy chair. Yeah, you are. to report back to the 2023 business meeting. Yes. All those in favor of referring to that committee to report back in 2023, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed. I'm going to call for a division because it's too close to count. All those in favor, please stand, raise an appendage, what have you. In favor. All those opposed, please stand, raise a card or a hand.
2,
3, 4, 6,
7,
8,
9, 10,
11,
12,
14, 15,
17, 23.
31.
Head table. 36 against. The motion is referred to a committee to be at least deputy chaired by Lisa Hertel. Those members who wish to be on the committee should come up after and talk to Lisa. James Bacon, for what purpose does the member rise?
I'm not sure. Which is why he's running. Assistance of the chair.
Just come on up. Okay, so the committee is going to be chaired by Sarah Felix with Deputy Chair Lisa Hertel. James was on the phone. Going to move to F.3. For what purpose does the member rise?
Motion to suspend the rules and move the debate to F.4, that's game or not.
What? You're no, I was, yes, the motion made is to suspend the rules and take up F.4 before F.3. It has been seconded. Do we really need to speak to? Yeah. A motion to suspend the rules is neither debatable nor amendable. You would think that's like ingrained in my forehead now. All those in favor of suspending the rules and taking up F.4 before F.3, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed. All right, the ayes have it. I'm going to recognize Ira as the maker of the motion. Whatever was in the, yeah. Go ahead. No. Ira, can you come up to the, there you go.
thank you. Hello, my name is Ira Alexandra, pronouns they, them. I first moved to amend the motion so that both instances of the year 2026 are struck and replaced with the year 2028. This just gives the category the standard 5-year sunset clause instead of 3 years, nothing further with my apologies.
2029, please.
The motion is to strike the 6s at the end of the sunset clause and change them to 8s.
You make it 9.
No, I cannot make it 9, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to suspend the rule to permit it to be amended to 9.
That motion, I did not recognize you, and I'm going to state that the maker of the motion has counted years and has told me it's 8 and it's 8. Got it? Good. Is there any objection to changing the 6s to 8s? There is an objection. Do we really need to debate this? No. All those in favor of changing the 6s in the sunset clause to 8s, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed? Hands down. The ayes have it. The sunset clause is amended to be 2028. Now, your speech in favor of the underlying motion.
Well, again, thank you. I'm still Ira Alexandra, pronouns they, them. The Hugos need an inclusive best game or interactive work category to recognize the incredible amount of spectacular and innovative speculative fiction storytelling being done in this utterly unique medium. The viability for video games was amply demonstrated in 2021, with 40% participation in the final round. Nominations were comparable to Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form, while outperforming many established categories, such as Best Graphic Story and most of the artist, editor, and fan categories that our community already acknowledges and values. The finalists included a range of titles, half of them independent. The voter packet was successful, and Hades, an independent, affordable, cross-platform game, won the award. The line between digital and analog is increasingly blurry, and the medium-neutral games and interactive works category would not only future-proof the category and ease the burden on Hugo administrators, but would also give a wider range of works united more by common tools, structure, and spirit than they are divided by differences of presentation, a better chance at the recognition they deserve. After 4 years of research and seeking feedback from the community, the Games to Go campaign has repeatedly demonstrated the viability of this category in terms of time, finances, ability, and accepted community practice. Our work has been publicly available at games2go.com and addresses every question and concern we have received from the community. Interactive storytelling is utterly and irreplaceably unique, creating worlds and stories that can only be told via interaction. We are blessed to be living in this golden age of games art and witnessing the technological and cultural advances pushing the bounds of what's possible. What else is speculative fiction about? I humbly request that this body explicitly acknowledge this thriving and vital speculative fiction medium that has meant so much to WSFS members for so long.
Is there anyone wishing to speak against here? Yes. And yes, please do come up. All right. Speech against.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Ray Richards, he, him pronouns.
You are going to have to get a little closer.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Ray Richards, he, him pronouns. I will be brief. We have too many Hugos. I suspect everyone in this room probably agrees. The problem is none of us agree which ones we shouldn't have, which is why we can't get rid of any of them. Frankly, I'd rather have a best game Hugo than some of the ones we already have. But until we do get rid of the ones we already have, I can't support a new one.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Move to read previous question. Second.
There is a motion to call the question. It has been seconded. Is there any objection to calling the question? Ron, are you objecting? All those who still wish to speak, please raise your hands. question and ending debate, raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed? Hands down. The ayes have it. The question is called. The question before the body is to create first passage of F.4, which is on page 13 and 39 of the long form, and send it on to Chengdu for ratification. Yes, as amended, that is correct, with the 8s. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed, hands down. The ayes have it. We can't do straw polls. There's a motion to suspend the rules and allow a straw poll to determine if we think we can get through one more item of business today. Is there any objection to suspending the rules to allow a straw poll? Seeing none, do we think we can handle F.3 today? All those who think we can, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those who think we can't. All right, so we're going to go with F.3. Is there a page 12 and 38, there are 20 minutes of debate allowed. We don't have to use it all. And there's 18 minutes left in this session. Is there a maker of the motion in the room? Cliff, I would ask that, knowing you are able, you expeditiously make your way to the mic.
Cliff Dunn, he, him, pronouns. Very simply put, as Mr. Richards noted, we are creeping up on a point of having too many Hugos. More to the point, giving Hugos is not free, both financially, the award costs money, the reception costs money, and in terms of time, both on the parts of the nominators, the ceremony, etc. At the same time, the social cost for any individual moving to get rid of a Hugo is very high. People will likely get their heads bitten off by whatever community a given Hugo is going to. I've seen this happen on SMOFs multiple times over the years when the question of getting rid of or severely changing a Hugo comes up. So, with an intentionally very hard to beat threshold of 10% of ballots cast in 2 out of 3 successive years, so it's not just some one-off fluke like the puppies, we propose that an item be placed on the business meeting agenda. It's not automatic. It has to go through the normal ratification process for a constitutional amendment to remove the Hugo item, the Hugo award that is receiving exceedingly low participation, be placed on the business meeting agenda. If it's because of a fluke, we can postpone indefinitely the item in question at the PBM. It can go away as normal business, etc., etc. But if we reach a point that participation in a given award is that low, we need to have that discussion without somebody putting their head on the chopping block of the internet so that we can actually have that discussion. So I would ask this body to adopt this so that if Hugo Creep continues, there is at least some limited counter to that possibility. Thank you.
Is there anyone wishing to speak?
Assembly. Mr. Chairman, is it not a code of conduct violation to be eating in this room? Thank you.
It is. You are allowed to drink in this room. Please do not eat in this room. Yes, and when you are drinking, only take a short sip and then put your mask back on. Is there anyone wishing to speak against?
Andrew Evans, he, him. Would this not be better as a standing rule than a part of our Constitution?
Mr. Chair, may I please respond?
No. I'm going to say that the motion was made as an amendment to the Constitution, and...
Sorry, my parliamentary question should be, is it in order to move that this be changed to a standing rule rather than part of the Constitution?
I mean, this is up for first passage, so yes.
Yeah, I so move.
Is there a second to... All right. I will note that the Secretary has the purview to figure out where this goes in the standing rules. Right. Is there anyone wishing to debate the motion to amend the text from a constitutional amendment to a change to the standing rules?
I don't wish to debate, Mr. Chair. I would like an explanation of the effect thereof.
Yes. So, the effect of moving it to the standing rules is that A, it would take effect at the end of this convention and not require ratification next year. B, because it's in the standing rules and not the Constitution, would be suspendable by a 2/3 vote of the business meeting. I think that's a little silly because it would have to be before the business, but whatever. And you could change it anytime in the future in a 1-year process. It would not require a first passage and a ratification should a change be suggested. Does everybody understand that?
Thank you.
Good. Is there anybody wishing to debate the amendment, the motion to amend? Dave? Is this in favor or against?
It is against, which I think is fine.
Yes.
Dave McCarty, he, him. Thank you, Chairman, for the excellent explanation. After that, I think that it is better that this be a 2-year process in each direction rather than at the whim of any particular business meeting.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the motion to amend? Ben Yallow.
Ben Yallow, he, him. This still is a 2-year process because basically all this does is it puts it onto the agenda. Now, I personally think that this is a criteria that is much too hard to happen, but at least it puts it onto the agenda. And then if we want to make the constitutional change, we then have to vote it on twice. It stays a 2-year process to kill a category.
Is there anyone remaining wishing who needs to speak against the motion to amend? Is there anyone who needs to speak in favor of the motion to amend? Kevin? I will note we have 10 minutes remaining in this session.
Kevin Stanley, he, him. The advantage of doing this is this really is something that we're instructing the business meeting to do rather than the convention to do, and therefore procedurally it is a better thing to have it as a standing rule.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion to amend? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Winton, just shout. Regardless, well, if the motion to amend passes, we can pass this as a standing rule and it takes effect at the end of this year. If the motion to amend fails, we can still pass the underlying motion, it just would require ratification in Chengdu. Joshua, for what purpose does the member rise?
Second.
The motion made is to call all of the previous questions. That means we will go directly to a vote on the amendment and then without any further debate go to a vote on the underlying item, depending on if it's motion to amend the Constitution or a standing rule at that point. It has been seconded. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we will move to a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of amending F.3 to change it to a standing rule instead of a constitutional amendment, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed? The ayes have it. All right. All those in favor of passing a change to the standing rules such that the text currently listed as F.3 in the agenda becomes included in the standing rules, subject to wherever the secretary decides to put it, please raise your hands. Hands down. All those opposed, please raise your hands. The ayes have it. The text currently at F.3 is inserted into the standing rules wherever the secretary wants to do it and will take effect at the end of this year. Seeing as it is now set, seeing it is now 12:53, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we are adjourned for the day.